Okay, I'll call the December 2nd, 2025 meeting of the commission to order. And for tonight's meeting, we'll have time for public comment, approve our minutes from November 18th, and spend most of our time with a discussion of our ongoing project around zoning that we've titled Enable Housing. Chris has done some research for us around some model neighborhoods around density and dimensions. And we'll share reports from one another, wrap up for plan for our December 16th meeting, and then adjourn. Does anyone need to make any changes to the agenda? Okay. So next we will have time for public comment. Anyone wish to offer public comment to the planning commission? Yes, please come forward.
I'd like to just remind you and everybody that the recommendations from the Affordable Housing Committee were given as what we thought were no-brainers that could be included in the townwide changes that you made in the recent visions. They were not like stretch goals or the end all. They were meant to be things that could have been put in the last round. And I hope that I certainly hope you were much more ambitious than those recommendations. They were presented as something we thought were no-brainers and that you could include on the last one. They're not stretch goals. The Planning Commission and Select Board has long favored luxury home developments over affordable housing. We currently have 5 luxury home developments under construction right now in Jericho. Each of them are in places where apartments are illegal. And I'm certainly ashamed of that. And I hope that changing that is top of mind. Also in Jericho, whenever we're thinking about housing for low and middle income people, we start designing it for people, designing model neighborhoods, as opposed to, we never design luxury homes for people. And I encourage you to provide as much freedom and flexibility as possible for the housing that we're talking about, and resist the temptation to continually designing the lives of low and middle income people. Some examples of things that I think that we should be permitting in Jericho. I'm looking at the Bolton condos. It's 44 units on 6 acres, self-sufficient in both water and septic. There's only 50 homes in Jericho Center. It is a village center. I can't think of a place in Jericho where we wouldn't want something like that. There was some talk about limiting housing for most of Jericho to no more than a 4-plex in one of your last meetings. I encourage you to go look at the 8-plex Woodland off of Route 15. We require too much land for that already. But we should be, if we're going to allow luxury developments of 45 bedrooms, we ought to be allowing apartments of the same size. And mobile homes, Jericho has long had a de facto, both legal and de facto, opposition to mobile homes. We still do. Mobile homes aren't meant to be a single home on 10 acres. If you're requiring 10 acres for a mobile home, you're not allowing them. You basically have de facto outlawed mobile homes in Riverside with your recent changes. Homes have to be can be no wider than a certain amount. Mobile homes are wider than that. The door has to face the road. Mobile homes don't have doors on their ends. A good mobile home park has 5 to 8 homes per acre. I hope that when you're done, someone will be able to build a mobile home park of 40 or 50 homes on 10 acres, not on 500 acres. And currently, you want to build a mobile home of 10 homes, you have to have 100 acres. It's just ridiculous. I want to, just the final thing is this whole idea of the myth of everywhere, which is if we approve something, it will happen everywhere. The last time when the planning commission and the select board refused to legalize triplexes, fourplexes, 3 or 4 years ago, a select board member said, well, I don't want to drive around town looking at fourplexes everywhere. We've been allowing enormous single family homes, 60,000 square feet. Now it's now 10,000 square feet. Those haven't been built. There's a lot of things that we allow that aren't built everywhere. If we're getting too many clusters of affordable homes, you can make a change. If you don't like that, you can make a change later. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Motion to approve the minutes for November 18th. Who would like to do that for us?
Take a motion to approve this.
Okay, Chris, thank you. And a second? I'll second. Wendy, thank you. Any corrections or edits to the minutes of November 18th? Okay, ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say yes.
Yes.
And abstentions. Eric and Heidi are abstaining. And Sabina, Wendy, Chris, and Susan said yes. And SJ's not here tonight, right?
Right.
Yep. Okay. Next, I will pass it over to Chris.
Okay.
Great. So tonight we are continuing our discussion on enabled housing and looking at what zoning can do beyond village centers to make it easier to build housing. And this is being coupled with looking at recent work by the Conservation Commission that looks at forest cover and how that might be incorporated into our natural resources of overlay. This is just a recap of the charge that we received from the select board. Been working through each of these sort of methodically. Tonight we are going to be talking about lot sizes and some dimensions, which ticks off a couple of these topics. This is our process that we've been going through. So tonight we're actually following up on the discussion from the last meeting on November 18th, where we were looking at, tonight we'll be looking at dimensions from model neighborhoods that the commission thought were representative of compact and walkable neighborhoods. This is also going to further our discussion on dimensional reforms that we first discussed back on October 7th. That discussion was about how our existing zones are in line with similar zones in adjacent towns. So it was just sort of like here's where we are. And then tonight we'll look at these model neighborhoods that have small lot sizes. That's the direction we're going to go. In terms of goals that we've defined, here's what we've defined since we started working on this. There are no changes on the goals. In terms of guidance, the only differences here is that I had added separating lot size from density, but that is something that we are not interested in pursuing, so I've taken that off the list. All right, so for tonight, we'll review our current requirements for lots and dimensions in existing zones, both for the standard subdivisions and PUDs. And then I'll go through some things to keep in mind when we're thinking about lot sizes. That's a new slide. It wasn't in what got sent out on last Wednesday. And then we'll look at lot sizes and dimensions for 7 different neighborhoods. 3 of them are not in Jericho, and I think 4 of them are in Jericho. So you just kind of get a sense of what we have in our existing neighborhoods. All right. So for looking at our existing zones, we've been focusing more on the village, commercial, and low density residential, since those are our growth areas. Existing lots require minimum lots in those areas, at least for a standard subdivision, range from 1 to 3 acres and 0.25 to 0.33 if you're in a PUD. Both the village and commercial use 1 acre as the baseline lot size. This is used to calculate density. But then it also allows lots down to 0.25 if you're going through a PUD, and then the low density residential uses the 3-acre minimum lot size for calculating density, and then able to go down to the 0.33 acres if you're in a PUD. But in both those scenarios, the density stays the same. It just allows you to go to the smaller lot size. All right, so some things to keep in mind. So homes in areas without municipal water or septic will typically require larger lots if they have their own water supplies or septic systems on their property. Although this could be reduced if you had a community-based system serving a subdivision, but it's just sort of putting that out there. The 3 biggest factors for how much space is needed for a septic system are, and a lot of this I think a lot of people know, but just kind of getting on the record, soil types. The best soil types that require less space for septic fields are sandy loam and loam. Those have good rates of percolation. With soils you don't want too fast or too slow, you want just right, and those are the sweet spot for that. The worst soils are coarse sand and loamy sand, which either drain too fast or too slow. The other is household size. The more bedrooms you have in a house, you have to have a larger septic field. That's how the size is determined. And then there are local regulations like setbacks that have an impact on, how small of a lot you can have based on if you have a septic system and what your setbacks are. So Vermont has a number of requirements for setbacks along service lines, wastewater tanks, in-ground and mound systems, and then setbacks for different features. So, for example, a septic tank can be 10 feet from a building, but a leach field has to be 75 feet from a building. I think both have like a 10-foot distance from a side yard. There's just a number of requirements. So it's not like you just need to have room for a septic system. So then some other things to keep in mind related to lot size and wastewater municipal water. The minimum size for a property with no access to public utility that needs to provide for both is typically around 1 acre. Everything that I've read says that is a safe assumption that you'll be able to provide both of those on one property. Areas outside of the village centers that have access to municipal water, so you wouldn't have to worry about one of those, that aren't in a village center are along Packard Road and Morgan Road. So there's a big village center zone along Packard Road that has water supply, and then as it goes out to Morgan Road, you're going through some low-density residential areas.
Village district, not village center.
Correct, village.
Okay.
Correct, yeah. But I said because I was thinking to also say the other water district is fully servicing the Riverside and Underhill Village Center, although there is an area to the north that is in the water district that is rural ag residential. It's interesting. So soils in Jericho that are generally good for septic, and now I'm not an expert here, and this is all based on just sort of what I'm finding out online and looking through Vermont's environmental protection rules. Jericho actually has like decent soils for septic. A lot of them are in the reasonable to like really good category, just based on mapping and what we think we know about soils here. And like I said before, septic fields by themselves are not large. A leach field for a 3-bedroom home with decent soils needs to be anywhere from 170 to 250 feet. And for a 4-bedroom home, that's between 200 and 300 feet. And then just for context, this meeting room is 20 feet by 30 feet. So for a 3 or 4-bedroom home, the septic field you would need is literally half the size of this room. So it's not really a big space. But that's not considering all the setbacks that I kind of went through before. Are there any questions about this before I go on? Okay.
That was really helpful.
Yeah, very
Thank you.
helpful.
Great, thanks. All right, so now going into these examples of model neighborhoods, or what we're calling model neighborhoods, but they're more models just because they're nice, compact, walkable. I think that's what we like about them. That's why I was asked to look at them. So these are organized by going in neighborhoods that are the most dense with the smallest lots to larger. So this first one is the Five Sisters neighborhood on the south side of Burlington. It developed between 1910 and 1950s. It was for working and middle class families. A lot of them worked in mills and factories that were along Flint Avenue or Pine Street. This area has both municipal water and municipal utilities. It's connected by a grid of streets that are 50 feet wide and include sidewalks and street trees on both sides of the street. The lots are small. They are anywhere from 1/10 of an acre to 1/4 of an acre, with frontages averaging around 44 feet. Setbacks were typically 14 feet. That's in addition to, which was typically 12 feet from curb to where the right of way ended, which included some of the sidewalk. Well, included the tree box, the sidewalk, and maybe even a little bit of people's front yard, what looks like a front yard. These dimensions are about half or what is currently required in our village and commercial districts. Even going through a PUD, because a PUD lets you go down, well, actually, the PUD lets you go down to 0.25 acres, but a lot of the lots here were 1/10 of an acre. They were really pretty tight.
But it feels like a great neighborhood.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'm just for context. So what we like about this and what our regulations actually allow, even going through a PUD. This next one is in Essex Junction. It's a neighborhood that's to the east of their downtown. It's between Main Street and Maple. Just east of the Five Corners. These streets developed with a mix of 20th century housing types, anywhere from like wood frame Victorians to bungalows to Cape Cods, even some mid-century stuff. Again, this neighborhood also has access to municipal wastewater and water. Half the streets in this neighborhood have sidewalks on one side, and the other half don't have any sidewalks. It's also, looking back on what we did as part of the DMG, we did require sidewalks on at least one side of the street in a village district. So lots in this neighborhood were, in general, they were a 1/4 of an acre, which is similar to Lafayette Drive in Jericho. I'll get to that a little later, with setbacks that are similar to what you require in our village district, and then frontage requirements that are much less than what we require in our village district. So the frontage is here, the width of lots were 80 feet, and in our village district, it's 120 feet as a standard lot. The next model neighborhood is Bristol, Vermont, which is a town in Addison County, about 25 minutes southeast of Burlington. It developed as an early 19th century mill and manufacturing center. The village has a population of around 1,900, so not the whole town, just the village itself. And the residential areas here have municipal water, but not wastewater. The town of Bristol does have wastewater, but it only services their main street. So there are businesses with some residential, but they're more like second floor. They're not single family homes. I looked at 2 streets I thought were typical in the village area that were lined with homes, and then sidewalks on at least one side of the street. If you know Bristol, I looked at Church and Maple Street, so that's the area that's out. Oh, I should tell you, the areas that are outlined on the screen, if you didn't know intuitively, are the areas that I did the assessment for. Okay. So the lots here are also smaller, average about 0.4 acres. So almost half an acre, with frontage widths that range from 60 to 150 feet and setbacks of around 16 feet. The streets here are 50 feet wide and also have about 12 feet setback for sidewalks and street trees. This neighborhood's also, it's compact, it's walkable, and the lots have dimensions similar to what we allow through a PUD in the village commercial and low density residential districts. All right, so those were not in Jericho. So now these are 4 neighborhoods that I did look at in Jericho. So the first here is Lafayette Drive, and you can see the outline of the area, and then the arrow is just indicating which direction the picture is if you want it for reference. So Lafayette Drive, and Chuck is going to tell me if I'm correct on this, developed between 1958 and 1960.
It was permitted in 1959, and the houses were built in the couple of years after that.
Okay,
They were
so
built with a 15% cost of construction incentive from the town.
great. Okay, cool. It has municipal water service. It comes very close to realizing the dimensions that we allow in PUDs and village districts for lot size, and then the 15-foot setback, which is the minimum setback. It's also very close at meeting the frontage widths for a standard subdivision. So the frontage widths here are 110 feet, which are a little less than the 120 feet that's required for a standard subdivision in the village. Although PUDs allow lots to go down to 50 feet in width. So none of these are like the golden goose that reflect all of them, but they have different parts of them.
The setbacks look like more than 15 feet.
They probably have, well, this street does not have sidewalks. I didn't check the road widths on these, but I'm gonna guess they're around 50 feet because that seems pretty typical. So if that road is 20 feet, you've got 15 feet on either side. That's still right of way. The biggest difference here is the side yards. So what's shown here are 30-foot side yards, which is more than twice the 15-foot minimum allowance for a standard village subdivision. One thing I really noticed is sort of I was going through this, and this has come up again and again at our meetings about the importance of lot width in creating that sense of a walkable neighborhood. And these images, I think, really will help. You can visually see how much spread out these houses are just because the lot width is so large. The next is,
Just a quick question. You mentioned they're on municipal water. Where's their sewage?
they're all on septic.
They're all individual family septics?
Which is really surprising to me because it's 0.25 acres. Now, they're classified 0.25 acres. Now, this was permitted in the late 50s and early 60s when standards were different. So I don't know. I'm assuming that plays a big role in being able to have smaller areas. So maybe the setbacks, probably the setback requirements weren't so much.
So when this was built, who decided? I mean, was there zoning in place at that time, and who decided the lot sizes and the setbacks and all of that?
There was no zoning.
So was the street? So how did it develop?
It was developed by Joe Rotunda, who started Joe's Snack Bar. And in the 1950s, Jericho offered an incentive of 4 years of no school or property tax for any town. And, he bought the land and developed it.
So he basically was the one who decided how big the lots would be and
Yes,
where the houses would be placed and all that.
yes. And the town reacted quite negatively to it. And that helped that and prompted the town to that, and also the number of mobile homes that were that went in the 1950s. But Lafayette Drive was the thing that provoked zoning in Jericho. People didn't like
it. Both Lafayette and Sunnyview are both in the village center zone, just for context. The next subdivision is Sunnyview. This was developed in the late 60s and early 70s. It also has municipal water service. The subdivision is similar to Lafayette, with frontages that are a little wider and lots that are much deeper. So the setbacks and side yards are practically identical to Lafayette Drive.
Chris, you say this is all municipal water. Is that municipal as in the town of Jericho, or municipal as in they have a homeowners association that owns the water?
It's the Jericho Village Water.
It's a Champaign water system.
Yeah, it's the water district, but it is Champlain.
I think it is Champlain. And I just call it municipal water because it's a private entity, but it's a shared water system. So when I say municipal water, I'm just,
Yeah, Champlain Water District kind of fits in that definition too. Even though it's a private company that, but yeah, okay, that's what I was wondering.
it was, these screenshots, they're all from Street View, and for the subdivisions in Jericho, I really had to poke around to try to find a shot that showed more than two houses in it. Because they're all, the side, everything is so.
You didn't want to just drive around and take pictures?
It was a couple of days before Thanksgiving, so I was trying to.
So what's interesting, this neighborhood, you said the front and the sides are similar to Lafayette, but the lots themselves are deeper. So either the zoning or the developer chose or required, the outcome was a larger backyard. And for whatever reason, the houses were still chose to be located at a certain distance to the street and not like way back with a giant front setback.
Yes, and what I think is interesting, these lots are literally twice as large as what's in Lafayette. But when you look at the street, the frontage is very similar and the setback is very similar.
Right, it's all backyard.
It's all backyard. So you still get a very similar scale on the street. I think, let me go back. No, that's, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking. Bristol is also similar in that way. They're a little less than half an acre, but
still pretty close to
They're a lot closer to the street.
Yeah.
Got bigger houses too.
and the frontages range from 60 to 100, almost 150 feet, but the depth is 190 on average.
But those are also, most of those are two-story houses. They're bigger than what we see in Lafayette.
Yeah, that's the other thing is the examples that we have in Jericho are all the one-story, Rambler mid-century type housing, which is just not going to have the same type of street frontage. All right.
Those
So
were sold with unfinished second floors. So they were sold with finished first floor for a couple with one child in theory, and then they could buy a cheaper house with an unfinished second floor, then they could finish the second floor later.
these were
Pretty
built
sure the
with
zoning was half an acre then.
these were built with an unfinished second floor.
Some of you, yeah.
So the next development, it's a cluster of homes on Packard Road, where the homes were built primarily in the late 60s and early 70s on lots that are anywhere between 0.5 acres and 1 acre. This cluster of homes comes close to realizing dimensions that are required for standard dimensions in the village district. The lots are close to 1 acre, the average is 0.7, and the frontages are 120 feet wide. However, these setbacks are around 65 feet, so they're far more than the minimum 25 feet for the village district. And the side yards are 28 feet, so that's almost twice the width of the 15-foot minimum.
Was that built as a development or is that just the way it occurred naturally?
I think it occurred naturally. I think just because there's no consistency, well, the houses all were built. There's a cluster of houses here that were built between 1969 and 1973. There's one that was built in like 2003. There was one that was built in 1960, but most of them all happened within, I'd say, a 5-year period.
Mhm.
So it looks like this is one where someone just was subdividing property and selling them, and they were just being developed.
And not doing the building itself, just the property itself.
Right, they were more like custom homes. Yeah, I chose them just because the lot sizes were a little bigger, so I was getting a little bit of a different scale to look at in terms of.
But like what you said, the dimensions and the scale that we're looking at in this neighborhood, in this photograph, is larger than what the current zoning requires for this district?
I
Or not?
Let me look at my notes here.
Actually,
These lots are smaller because in the
Oh,
village
1 acre.
district, it's 1 acre, and this is actually in a village center. I think this is village center. But in terms of a village district, it's close.
I'm sorry, how is that? Packard is a village center? No.
and,
I'm
Village.
I'm off.
Village.
Yeah, so it's a village district. So village has a 1 acre minimum. It's 0.7, so it's relatively close. The lots here range anywhere from 0.5 to acres to 1
There
acre.
was half acre zoning starting in 1961, everywhere in Jericho except the commercial district.
Okay. And then the lot widths here are 120 feet, which is, I believe that's what is in the village district now.
Oh, so this is the.
Yeah, minimum lot width is 120 feet in the village district. Frontage width. Side yards are 25 feet, and in this case, they are relatively close to 100 feet, so similar. This, to me, feels pretty spread out.
Very suburban.
Very spread out, very suburban.
Very suburban, and
It
clearly,
would cost a fortune to build a sidewalk
clearly
to service a
A
reasonable
car.
number of houses.
car-based
Yes.
development. The only, these examples are really interesting to look at, and I think the only one that really stands out to me as built as a walkable area is the Five Sisters neighborhood. Bristol is, pretty close, but the Five Sisters neighborhood was clearly built. Like, the density is just so nice and so pedestrian oriented. But all these other ones just don't have that same feeling.
I think Bristol and I think the one in Essex Junction. I mean,
What Essex Junction to me feels very different than the Five Sisters. They're set back very far from the road. There's no sidewalk. It feels very different.
they're very different, but they're pre-World War II. I mean, they're pre-auto dominant culture. In Bristol, that street network is from the 1800s.
Yeah, so that feels walkable, but it's really interesting to look at the differences because and it's about more than, I mean, we went through this with the Riverside, but it's about more than just the dimensions.
And if we're looking at what the impact of the placement of the houses is on that sense of community, I know several people that live in that Pleasant Street neighborhood, and they have a really strong sense.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a really, really strong neighborhood
Yeah.
feeling in that community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we get together all the time, parades,
Oh, yeah.
block parties, and
Yeah.
know each other. Yeah.
And of course, it takes a couple of the community oriented people to make that happen, but
Mhm.
it is also how it is. They see each other all the time. They talk.
They're all going in and out the front doors. Yeah. This last one, I did this really interesting to me, because this just feels like the low density, and this is the Snowflake and Ross Lane neighborhood. They have the largest lots that we're looking at tonight. These lots are over 1 acre, so they're 1.2 acres. The frontages are almost 200 feet, and the setbacks are 60, and the side yards are 70. So, but when you look at this, and these are 2-story homes. I mean, they are really spread out. It has lot sizes that also kind of align with the village district. It's 1.2. It's a little bit over. The frontage requirements are similar to what we require in the low density residential district. And the front yard and side yard setbacks are 2 or 3 times what is standard for the low density residential district.
Wait, say that again?
The front yard
Uh-huh.
and side yard setbacks are, no, that's not right.
So for those of you who,
Oh, yes, it is right. Sorry. The front yard setback here is 60 feet.
Yeah.
The low density residential only requires 35. So
Okay.
the setbacks here are twice the minimum setback for the low density residential. And the side yards here are 70 feet. And that is 3 times what we require as the minimum. Because it's in the low density residential, the minimum side yard is 20 feet and these are 70 feet.
Are these are these on Champlain Water District as well, or are they there?
Mhm.
And do they have individual septic?
Yes.
a lot of swimming pools.
You're looking at Google Maps.
I am, because I realize that my geography is not so good, but also it helps to have like the top-down visual of this. And if you look at it, it does look very, very different and more spread out. And as if each property is very self-contained.
There's a lot of,
Right?
that's.
Is that true?
Yes, well, yes, and, because I walk that neighborhood.
Oh, you do, good, okay.
I'm on Griswold and I walk those streets all the time. But there's a lot, interior in the backyards, there's a lot of just sort of, there's some, ravines and wildlife.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that they're
Part
wildlife.
of the town forest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does, and it comes in, so there are some geological features that I think come into play with why some of those lots are so deep.
Yeah.
And they also sort of kind of come together in this big open space, and not an open space in a way that was, intentionally planned perhaps, but that was the result of it.
Is it around that stream that's
Yeah.
front here?
Yeah.
Should make sense.
And I think about infill housing all the time when I walking around these neighborhoods. It's kind of annoying because I can't think of anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, it's really difficult to see how you would place houses back in there with the road frontages.
So an HOA banning.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, but,
You're saying it's hard to imagine how these lots could be further subdivided
yeah,
or have infill development in this area.
yeah, just the way, with the current regulations, with the current, road frontages requirements.
Yeah, most of the houses are situated right in the middle of their
On
lot,
the lot, yeah,
and
so,
that causes problems.
You
Yeah.
need to go through a PUD.
yeah,
But the person who would do that would have to buy 5 or 6 lots with houses on it, and then invest into through a PUD.
right,
And
if I just want
Lot
to
lines
develop
would
a lot, my own lot,
Very challenging.
it would be very challenging.
You could, yes, definitely challenging. The current regulations, like if your septic could accommodate it, you could add an ADU. You could convert your house to a duplex or a triplex or a quad by converting it or by adding onto it, making the building itself bigger. If you had to make it bigger to accommodate more units.
So because these are 1.2 acres, they're over the minimum 1 acre lot size. So you could go through a PUD, which would allow you to create lots that are 0.25 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So then you would just need to figure out if you really did want to do that, and if there weren't HOA restrictions preventing you from doing it, you would just need to figure out how to accommodate your septic and make sure you have enough water.
so can you remind us, Chris, about where we're going with this conversation before we start?
Yeah, well, let me correct what I just said. Actually, you wouldn't have to worry about water here because they're on water, so you'd only have to worry about your septic. So,
Because these were examples to stimulate some thinking.
great. So you're totally queuing up the next slide. Great. So we were looking at the existing zoning districts and the existing lot sizes, and we wanted to look at other example neighborhoods to see if we wanted to make the minimum lots in the existing zones smaller than what they already are. So for the village center, I keep saying village center, for the village and the commercial, the minimum lot is 1 acre. And you go down to 0.25 through PUD. In the low density residential, the minimum lot size is 3 acres, and you can go down to 0.3 acres. So the question is, like, when you're considering the neighborhoods that we saw, that we looked through, that we think have a nice scale or are more walkable, you know, our minimum lot and dimensions in these growth areas getting the type of compact and walkable neighborhoods that we think we need here in Jericho?
Historically, I would say no, because that's what we're seeing here.
I think the 1/4 acre lot size in the Five Sisters neighborhood would be great in our village districts.
Yeah, if there's nothing developed there, a 1/4 acre makes a lot of sense. But if you go into the Griswold neighborhood or the Sunnyview ones that we're just looking at, would that stimulate development is the next question.
Well, I think that we will. There will always, well, there will in the near future, there will be a limitation based on septic. But I don't think that that should define how we think about the zoning.
If zoning is about, so I think there's a question, Eric, too, about if we turn it upside down, right? It's like, will it stimulate? We don't know. Is it in place now and could it possibly be preventing? The answer is yes. So the question is like, sometimes stimulating is about removing barriers and sometimes it's about creating opportunities. So it seems to me in this case, I would say, why not remove the barrier? Even if we don't know what the solution is or how said person is going to be able to make it happen, let's at least remove the barrier to the option. And then they figure out how to get over the hurdle.
I completely concur with that.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
it does. However, I would just say, if we do that and expect things to change, I suspect we'll be very disappointed.
I agree with you. It is.
Do that.
Yeah, so I would say it's necessary but insufficient to get us towards our goals. Or it is one piece of the step.
One of the many obstacles
Right,
that we
right,
can remove,
right.
but it is not necessarily the key obstacle. The key obstacle remains wastewater.
So I'll also say, if someone is doing a development and it's got 4 lots or more, it's a major subdivision, which is currently required to be reviewed as a PUD, which allows the 0.25 acres. So I'm not arguing we should or shouldn't change lot sizes, but I don't know how much of a barrier it currently is to get to those 0.25 acres, unless you just want to subdivide one property at a time.
So what's the argument for not removing that barrier?
Well, so I'm not making this argument, but I'm answering your question.
Sure, totally, yeah.
Which is there any consideration to the existing neighborhood and to maintaining the existing pattern so that someone who purchased a property and it has this, facing and side yard and front yard setback, and then the person right next door to them does something dramatically different as a result of a change in zoning that wasn't in place. Is there a reason to consider that?
I've been thinking about a lot, just in terms of our outreach to the general community of the areas that we're thinking about so that we're, as we get more concrete in our and in the direction that we're going, that we're not blindsiding people that live in those neighborhoods that then could, feel like we're trying to pull something over on them, you know, like we did such a good job of outreach when we were doing the modernization grant and being in touch with those communities. And I feel like, and I understand why we haven't done it yet, because we haven't been that specific in our discussions, but it feels like to me, we're getting to that point where I think it could really backfire if we don't start doing some of that outreach.
So the essence of your question is, would allowing a neighbor to subdivide harm the other neighbors next to them?
Yeah, or, let me think about that. Yeah, I guess, like, is that as
I mean, is that any more,
externality?
would it be any more harmful than if your neighbor decided to paint their house in checkerboard colors and
Right, no, or if they decided to do a home business that was, you know, sort of annoying to you, or which they're allowed to do by the zoning. No, and that's why I said I'm not making this argument. I'm just answering Heidi's question, like, because that's what I was thinking, like, well, what would be the downside?
Right.
I don't know that I think it's the downside. I agree, I guess, with Wendy. I think some people would definitely view that as a very negative consequence.
but other people would view that as very positive.
Yes.
And yes, it's not uncommon to have the don't tread on my property attitude.
Well, and to feel like I bought my house assuming it would stay as a particular way, and now you're going to change it,
Right,
right? I get that.
right.
We're not dramatically, we're not talking about dramatic change.
Oh, I'm being dramatic.
We're not changing the type of building that's gonna go there. We're not saying, you know, put an auto dealership there, or, I mean.
No, but if you're used to having somebody who's 80 feet away from you, and you subdivide, and now their house is 40 feet away from you.
Yeah, I don't think we should minimize changes. I think, because I think it could be very impactful.
Yeah.
Well, will it be more impactful than having the population stagnate and age and having the school population continue to decline
Well,
and
the difference
schools
is
close?
a
I mean,
common view versus an individual
Yeah.
view, because you know, it was.
but if we're talking about wanting change,
Mhm.
and now we're saying we don't want change.
I don't
No,
think
you're
we're
not saying
I
that.
don't want- I'm not.
I'm not
speaking
saying
for
that.
myself. I'm not saying I don't want change. I'm saying that I think if we're pursuing this, then we need to make sure that we're being transparent and letting people know who they'll be impacted in some way.
Yeah.
About those proposed changes.
And we'll emphasize what the positive
Yes.
outcomes of that will be.
Ah.
Yes, you're gonna have a neighbor closer to you, but your taxes are gonna go down because now they're sharing part of the burden.
Right, but I wouldn't be dismissive about the changes. Because I think that will turn people off.
Right. Well, human nature.
And I'm not suggesting that we be dismissive, but I am suggesting that if we don't make changes, we won't get changes. And so I think we need to be thoughtful and considerate and careful about how we introduce them.
Mhm.
But in my opinion, we have to make changes.
Well, and we have a mandate. I mean, let's just remember, right? There's still this, we're not starting from scratch here in terms of what the community's told us, what the select board has approved. We're building upon something. And now we're getting to the place where it gets uncomfortable because we are going to be proposing changes that become concrete. So I fully agree with you, Wendy, that it is the right time
Mhm.
for us to be transparent about the conversations and recognizing that we've had this conversation, that we understand that it's a balance.
Mhm.
And I would like to propose, I know Susan, you want to say something, but I'm ready to put on the table, like, let's propose that this is the direction that we pursue.
What Chris pointed out, I think is really important for Shaheen, because it echoes a little bit what Chris Brown was saying, which is Chris Brown said a 1/4 acre minimum lot size seems like an appropriate lot size that delivers the result of more efficient land use, more compact, walkable neighborhood. We've seen it successful in other areas. Then we were raising some concerns. But Chris Shaheen pointed out that our current regulations already, PUD, already enable a 1/4 acre lot size. So back to what you said, it's not a dramatic change. It's really that, totally just talking out loud, thinking out loud. It's really a different means to the same end, potentially. If the end is currently available as a 1/4 acre through a PUD, you're suggesting that we enable that same outcome without requiring a PUD.
Without that.
I think that's a good way to frame
Right?
it
Yes,
as well, that it's already
right,
permissible.
right.
Yeah.
Although, can I just ask a clarifying question? Because I thought I heard Chris Shaheen say it's only if you have 4 lots that you're doing it, that you can.
Well, you're required, but you
Required.
don't have, you could do it if you were
Oh,
anyway.
okay.
You can do a PUD as long as you have the minimum lot size for the zoning district.
Okay, all right, so thank you, because I misheard or misunderstood what you were saying, so thank you, Susan, for restating that.
Does that make sense? That's
Okay,
kind of what you're saying, right? Like the PUD allows it. So, or do you see it that way, that it's potentially, it seems dramatic but then when you kind of think it through, it's like, well, is it really that different?
Well, here's a nuance. If you're doing those through a PUD, you're going to the DRB and there's a discussion of a PUD. So there's an opportunity for neighbors to weigh in on the process. That's just how it is, right? Although subdivisions also require going to the DRB, although that is just lot size, it doesn't get into the more information about like housing positions and that stuff like that you would get through a PUD. So I think you would be getting to the same outcome, but you wouldn't be having the same type of public discussion that you would through a PUD. I'm just saying that is a difference that you would have.
Well, given that in the BMG, one of the goals was to reduce discretionary review and to have more administrative review, sort of seems to me like a continuation on that
It
theme,
would
right?
definitely do that.
it's consistent.
Yeah.
The other thing to bear in mind is that the reality of the septic constraints
Mhm,
are going to limit
right.
a lot of this. But I still believe that we shouldn't be limiting it.
But if you had a large enough property and you could have a community septic system,
Right.
Yes,
this makes it easier for you
and it would be a great solution. In my opinion, it's fully compatible with the Jericho village districts we've been talking about.
Right.
And
And
I
we're
was
just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna bring in the commercial district, so if you wanted to keep.
I was just gonna say, we're only talking about minimum lot sizes. We are not talking about maximums.
Mhm.
So we're just giving people the opportunities to go to this scale.
They could still say, well, the market, everybody wants a big backyard and we're not gonna do it, even though we can.
I think we are ready to move on to the next thing.
Oh,
So commercial district.
sure.
Well, I was,
I mean, just in terms of that,
Is that okay with you?
Yeah. I mean,
because I would like,
this is the discussion for tonight.
yeah,
Okay,
so
so
this,
I think we said for the
Village
Village.
district,
right,
Village, not
village.
sorry,
village
village.
district.
Just I know it. It's
I-
you know like you say it once the wrong way and then you say it the second time, then you're thinking, shoot, do I know which one I'm using? Okay, thank you. Then we are doing a little on that, and now we're going to talk about the commercial districts.
So why would anybody in the village, oh, never mind, forget it. So what you're, go ahead.
But I'm just thinking that because we often think in terms of our different zoning
Mhm.
places or categories, right? Between the village and the commercial and then the low density residential, right? Which are the three that were up on the screen. We've now ticked off one and said, okay, for this one we have, I'm just trying to like.
Right, so we have
We have consensus on that
That-
part.
the PUD minimum lot size, we think, should be made available to any
Standard
subdivision,
subdivision.
any standard
And we're just talking
subdivision
about village at this point.
at
right?
the, in the
Right,
village
and
Are you okay?
district. Yeah, yeah, is anybody, Sabina, do you have, based on, and I wanna make sure it's not based on like just our opinion or our preference. It's based on the data that we just assessed about different neighborhoods and our own zoning and the results, the outcomes that we are driving toward.
You're asking what
Those-
my opinion is?
Yeah, are you comfortable with that for the village district?
I am. I agree with that. I'm comfortable with the numbers. And I also agree with everything that Wendy said in terms of remembering how important this is going to be to people and not to minimize their discomfort when it comes up. So I'm on the same page.
Okay,
Before we leave village, what about frontage requirements? Because that, to me,
right,
do you just want me to come
yeah,
back with something?
I
Great,
defer,
I will do that.
okay. Now, Wendy put the commercial district on the table.
Because I mean, that to me has a lot of potential for smaller lot sizes.
Mhm.
Wendy, do you want to, I mean, it's like a mention on a later slide, but Wendy and Sabina, and I don't know if you've been part of the working group, but Wendy and Sabina have been looking at, yes,
I wasn't on the group, but I saw their draft,
have
but I
been,
had comments on the draft.
have been working on, the definitions for, among other things, the commercial district. Do you want to talk a little bit just about what you guys were thinking? Because I think that could inform
Yeah,
this.
and Sabina, please chime in. We wanted the definition and the name of the commercial district to reflect more of our current goals in the town plan, the future land use map. So, and we were thinking about the concept of incremental change, which came up a lot in the last meeting and was a very helpful guidance. So we were proposing that we to change the name to the commercial mixed use district, not necessarily as an endpoint, but as a transition to what it could be and to help folks start to feel more comfortable with the fact that, you know, it's probably not going to be a light industrial development. And do we want it that way? Or so start naming it and describing it in terms, not what we want to see there. Take out all the language about let's put everything in here that's considered a nuisance and really focus in on this coexisting mixed use with we don't even think we use the word light industrial. I think we just said provide for a range of employment opportunities. So emphasizing employment opportunities, emphasizing that it can serve sort of as like as a connector and help create cohesion between the two village centers, but kind of leaning into the residential mixed use part. Forgot what that answered your.
Yes, so now having that thinking inform when we're looking at the lot sizes. For
Yeah,
the commercial district, actually, I'm gonna go back.
So I have I mean, I think my feeling is that the commercial district is has been headed for a mixed use um, existence for a while, but I just want to, and I think it's probably the right thing. And I think it could support a lot of density. In my mind, I think it could support a village center density, but do we want to abandon the idea that it could be manufacturing or something that's not residential, that would be maybe not compatible with residential? I mean, our entire focus is on housing, which I totally understand, but are we, if we say that the commercial district is going to be housing or mostly housing, then we're really saying that Jericho will be a bedroom community. And do we want to just, I'm just asking if we're ready to.
I don't know whether we have to change the table of uses at this point.
No, but I think that what we're talking about is we are subtly or not subtly pushing to get housing there, which will be not ideally compatible with some industrial uses.
That's true.
And it's not a huge area. So I think that I'm just asking the question, do we want to sort of say that area that's been designated historically as the place for stuff you wouldn't want in the rest of town?
Right.
Do we want to totally let go of that? I mean, I'm just asking that question. That's all.
I appreciate the question, Chris, because one of the things that has been sort of in the back of my mind of the examples and the histories, like the Five Sisters or the one in Essex Junction, they grew up as neighborhoods because they had people who could walk to work, right? There was some place, it wasn't just about walking in the neighborhood, it was like walking to a place of employment or a place of engagement. And so if we don't want to just be a community, places of employment are very important. And I don't know that means it's industrial or not, but you've reminded me of that.
For me, it's somewhat of it's like a market decision too. Like,
Oh, for sure.
right, like this has been zoned this way for decades. There has been nothing preventing businesses from moving,
Yeah.
in terms of its zoning. There might be a lot of other reasons, but in terms of its zoning. So changing its name and how we describe it to see how the market might respond to that. And I would not suggest changing the table of uses or anything else without a very thorough discussion and like revisiting the whole master planning conversation. But as we drafted the definition, it's nothing that is not already said in the town plan.
It could be that for the commercial district, that maybe we look at the frontage, the minimum front and side yard setbacks to get more of that walkable scale that we want to get at. But we leave the lot sizes as they are, because if this is where we are expecting to have a mix of uses, it could be light industrial, it could be commercial, it could be apartments, it could be single, it could be duplexes. That is an area maybe where you want a little more design review that you would get going through a PUD to make sure that the uses are compatible with each other.
I think we're really building up on the principle that it's like our state motto, but freedom and flexibility on one hand and communitarianism on the other. This balance.
It is worth noting that has been a commercial district for 30, 40 years now. And aside from Bugby's, Spofford's, and the mini storage center, Kate's, and Jericho, Nothing there.
Which is more retail. I mean, most of the, not the buggies and the
Offers,
those, but the other things are retail.
and they're on Route 15.
Mhm.
If you go back into there,
Yep.
it suggests that the market is saying we don't really want to put something in there that's of any grade. We should still allow it, because if something happens, we should, but I think we should increase the number of uses that are allowed there to include multifamily residential.
It is allowed there.
Yeah.
Right, it is.
Actually, the only zone where single family homes are not allowed.
Right, so it's just about changing how we're framing it, how we put it out, how we describe it.
Mhm.
And I think calling it a commercial district as opposed to a multifamily, multi-use district does open up more opportunities. No one wants to live in the commercial district, but a multi-use district, would be fun.
Can I just throw out that that particular a lot of that particular area is listed as prime ag soil, and so another take on an economic driver for that area could be a food-based business with housing. I'm thinking back to Chris's illustration of the working farm with those lines of small little houses, and thinking about some other communities where there's like an agribusiness model. So it's still adding to the economy. It's just a different type of business. And it could also include housing, because there are pretty good soils down in there. I don't know that anyone would, come to Jericho and say, I want to do that, but I just wanted to put it on the record.
Yeah, they might want to look at Hardwick and say, oh, yes, we should.
So, Chris, Shaheen, your view is a way of striking the balance that Heidi was referencing is, you said you could potentially leave the lot area as is, but you still have quarter acre through a PUD, but potentially that the frontage and the setbacks could be reduced, or that would be all through a PUD as well.
I would I think we should look at I would want to look at the standard frontage widths and setback requirements and right size what I would call them right sizing to what I think we would want to see for a more walkable neighborhood.
Even as a commercial district, it'd be nicer to see a Kate's on a quarter acre than Kate's taking up a full acre.
Yeah. But I mean, I haven't thought about this a lot. I've always kind of wanted to hold off on the commercial district because it is one of our transition areas. There's been a lot of discussion in the past. It does allow this mix of uses that probably do warrant greater scrutiny when projects are going through. So I stand by my earlier suggestion that maybe we just kind of keep it the way it is, except looking at those things. And
could we keep it as it is, but publicize the idea that with a PUD you could have greater density?
sure, I mean, that's what is there now.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm not sure most people who are looking at that district are thinking of a PUD versus.
I see. Well, the other thing too is if we want to increase the density, then you need to change the minimum lot size. Yeah.
If we choose not to include any changes to the commercial district at this round, I would really like to make us commit to a date by which that we might get it on our scope of work. Might not, if not possible for 2026, early 2027. Even that feels so far away.
Yeah, well, I think he wasn't saying no changes. He was saying, right, you were saying, look at road frontage, you look at everything except potentially minimum lot size.
Yeah, and maybe even thinking about a density bonus that's specific for the commercial district.
Just don't put any roads on there. Susan and I have good memories of what that did.
I have that same.
Yeah.
So I wonder if for the purposes of tonight though, that because it is sort of raising some, we're not sure. If maybe we don't necessarily make a premature decision, but say this one's a little bit more complicated, it requires a deeper conversation. We might need to like refresh our memories on something and come back to that one, but then talk about the low density
Yeah.
residential tonight.
What I would like to do for commercial is think about it and actually come back to you.
Yeah, okay. I would like to have some homework. Chris, like, cause
Because you missed the reading this week.
No, because I realized I don't understand the full complexity of the commercial district and what happened and its history and all that. Like, I need to get up to speed. I don't know if anybody else does in order to be useful to the conversation. So I'll just, if it's just me, then it's just me. But if it would be helpful to others, I just want to raise that point. And I'm happy to do my own homework or get a tutorial.
Well, you know how some of the previous meetings, the questions would come up and then there'd be a slide at the next meeting that sort of answers some of the questions. So why don't I work on a slide that gives a commercial district 101 background.
Is that helpful to other people?
Susan's looking at me, so I'm not.
No.
No,
Because she
I
knows.
might be the only one, Chris, because I might.
Well, I think we all lived through it.
Yeah.
And, right, but you and SJ weren't here. So
Right.
I think, but as Wendy was pointing out, the town plan chapters
On it, yeah.
do reference the commercial district master plan, which I think for me is still the guiding
Okay.
document that has yet to be implemented.
Okay.
And so I think, reading that, it's
I
not
will
that
do
long,
that.
it's maybe 20-ish
Okay.
pages.
And then,
But then also maybe the references that are in the town plan.
okay,
And then I do think still it would be helpful for Chris to summarize that at our meeting so that it's on
the record for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
If
thank
you want to
you.
get really deep, you can read the minutes of the
Yeah,
planning commission meetings on it.
yeah, but then
Thanks,
I
Eric.
would be. I'm very interested in what Chris said about right sizing because it's not rocket science to know that these dimensional standards are driving a very inefficient pattern.
The current.
And
We see it
given that,
all over town.
right, and
Yeah.
as we were talking about those other neighborhoods, I was like, oh, darn, too bad,
Yes.
we weren't here 25 years ago, because we would have
Right.
seen that, but now all those neighborhoods are built, like Eric is saying, like, oh, the house is in the middle of the lot. The commercial district isn't built.
Yes.
So I don't want to wait 2 years
Yes.
to make any changes to the commercial. I think we want to be thorough, but I think there's some things that we could do now
Okay,
that would prevent just continuation of this big spread out pattern. But still maintains like the scrutiny that you're talking about because we do want the uses to coexist. Okay, ready, move on? LDR. Do you want to start with some,
Do you want public comment after that, or?
I think after we go through this whole session, we're not finalizing anything, so. Do you want to have it?
Well, the only thought I have on LDR is I thought the example of Snowflake and Ross was pretty low density residential, I thought. And those were basically 1.2 acre lots. So if we were to change the low density under 1 acre, that's tripling the density. Which I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem.
Do we know like what percentage, and this, I maybe not off the top of your head, but I'm looking at the low density now here on the map and there's a lot of bigger lots. And I'm just curious about what percentage is already,
Already has a house on it?
yeah, or 3 acres. Like how many lots are already at the minimum?
Are already at 3 acres.
Yeah, like how, like, is that, cause that feels like that's not the 3 acres is not.
I think that maybe most of them are more than 3.
Yes, it looks like that just by eyeballing it, and more than 3. And so that's where it kind of goes back, like, to the outreach piece for me. Like, I think probably would be even more important to outreach to this area, because I think it would be even more above.
Oh, yeah.
More of a change.
Change, yes,
Because the reality of the built environment is that the lots are much bigger than
Yes,
the minimum.
exactly.
That's a good.
True, but following the logic we went through earlier, the PUD lot size there is 0.3. So some of the newer neighborhoods like that were built
Yeah,
off
you
of
can see
Brown's
those.
Trace Road,
Yeah,
for example,
right.
or probably off of Packard Road, like that Blueberry Lane, and
Mm-hmm.
some of those neighborhoods are PUDs. Not that they went to the 0.3 size, or like Plains Road. That's a PUD. I think that's LDR. And those lots are mostly like 2-3 acres because that's what the developer elected to do. So it would enable more houses on the same property, more than enabling smaller lots. I think that would be the bigger impact.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't fully understand. I haven't thought through, and will be a question for Chris Flynn, is how this would potentially impact existing developments. Like if it's just 100 acres, then it's an easy change to make. But if it's an existing PUD that's already gone through a review process and has all of this, I mean, if you were to do something, you would have to amend the PUD. So you'd have to go through a PUD process to change an existing, if it went through a PUD, to get to those smaller lot sizes. And I haven't done an assessment to know the answer to your question. How many of the properties in this area are at 3 acre lot sizes, or have gone through a PUD, or are undeveloped?
Well, one of the other options too is not to go to 0.25 as we were doing in the other ones, but
No, he said 1.
yeah, to have it go to 1. Okay, good, you did say that.
Yeah.
Because that would be, it's just sort of spreading out it's a more incremental.
Right. Good. 2.
Yeah, I was thinking that, or 1.5 or something that's in the more in the middle.
Just looking at the LDR on the map viewer, the majority of them are running between 3 to 10 acres. Just random sample that I'm taking up. So certainly they could go a lot smaller without necessarily causing any big problems.
And when you're
Opening up
looking
like
at that, are they parts of subdivisions or are they just lots?
Most of them are just lots. The subdivisions are smaller. But again, I'm just doing a random sample, so should not be treated as an average. It's reasonable.
Yeah, and then my guts kind of start hovering around 2.
I think if we're going to go down 3 or lower 3, just go to 1. Why not go to 1?
The reason why the question I want answered is talking through to Chris Flynn about what the implications are for existing developments and thinking through that, and if there's a difference between 1 and 2.
Just in the LPR.
Yeah. Well, I'll have the conversation with them about all of these changes, but this is the one, yeah.
That one probably has the most PUDs and the more recent development, like within the last 20 years, as opposed to the other neighborhoods we were looking at that were developed like in the 50s and 60s. It is further away from the village center.
Brown's Trace from MMU through is not that far away. And going through Plains Road, not that far away really. The village centers on each corner.
Yeah. Right, so most of those have been PUDs, and so most of them, I think the subdivisions. Well, that's where maybe a little bit more data here would be helpful, but subdivisions that I've looked at very sporadically have been PUDs less, so the lots are less than the minimum 3 acres. Anyway. But the opportunity to have more houses built on the same piece of property in this area, which we designated in the town plan future land use map for gentle infill, is what I'm thinking about. But 3 does seem too big. Okay, so.
So I feel like I've gotten plenty of feedback on
Okay,
this, yeah.
okay, excellent.
Great, anything else? I don't know
We're
what,
good. Good? Good, really good discussion.
Well.
You?
Hmm?
Isn't it, you're still up,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Next steps, there's really not much of an update here from what I talked about at the last meeting. For the zoning district purpose, the zoning district purpose descriptions already mentioned that Wendy and Sabine had pulled some stuff together that I'll look at later this week and bring it to the planning commission at some point. And then for the natural resources overlay working group, I'm still working on getting some of the resources that we have mapped in such a way that the working group can continue to have some of its next discussions, either getting that through RPC or with an intern that we've got. So I'm still trying to pull that together.
Okay. Public comment on what we just talked about. Yes, please, sir. Can you come forward though, so you're better in the microphone? Briefly.
One of the early recommendations from the Affordable Housing Committee is to decouple wastewater management from zoning. But the state is responsible for wastewater and water management, and using zoning to manage wastewater is really kind of a pretty blunt instrument. And it seems like we're sort of, anyway, just I think to bring some clarity to that. The second thing is I have given information to Chris. I hope you start really internalize the degree to which the village district is compromised by HOAs. A lot of the ones you looked at, Griswold, Snowflake, Ross Lane, Blueberry, all have homeowner bans on subdivisions and multifamily housing. So we're simply not gonna get much in the way of infill in those neighborhoods. The last thing is that the median household income in Chittenden County is $106,000, which kind of surprised me. It's a little higher than I expected. But a household with that income can afford a house of $354,000. Now, some households with $106,000 income have family money, or maybe they've moved from California or something and maybe can spend a little more. But half the people can afford a house more than 354,000. Half the people can't afford that. And a lot of your pictures up there envision single family homes or homes that might have, a couple units in it, which really you're kind of locked into kind of what we already have, as opposed to thinking about what people can actually afford. And I think unless we're talking about apartments, townhouses, mobile home parks, when it comes to the majority of people in Chittenden County, we're just kind of playing with our food. If we're envisioning single family home neighborhoods, well, I really hope in all these discussions, there's really, the paradigm that we need to break is apartment buildings and rows of townhouses. That's what people can afford, and mobile homes. 10% of the people in Vermont live in mobile homes. I think it's that, but it's an astounding number. But unless we're talking about that kind of housing, we're still talking about excluding the majority of people from already live in Chittenden County, from Jericho. So I think that's what we need to be visualized, not these single family neighborhoods. Thank you.
Now we'll hear the town planner's report.
Two things. So one, the first is this Thursday, I'm going to be presenting an opportunity to the planning commission to the select board, sorry, on looking at Vermont Route 15. This is actually something from CCRPC to look at state roads and where they cross through different types of uses like village centers, and what it would take for towns to take them over, to take their responsibility over from the state. So I believe each regional planning commission was asked to look at two towns, one more urban and one more rural. TCRPC already looked at Williston. They're looking for a rural town. Just came up in conversations. I said, well, I was thinking that this could queue up a lot of discussions for us if we were looking at village master plans and trying to make, Route 15 passing through our villages has always come up as an issue with the level of traffic and that type of the scale and pedestrian facilities and bike facilities. If a state highway is taken over by a town, it gives the towns much more flexibility in making the types of improvements that we would want to see, and sort of takes it out of the state's control of it. They still have to approve things, but there's a lot more flexibility in how to do that. This study would look at existing conditions. It would interview folks in the town from like what we would need if we were to take it over, what are the challenges that we have. It would look at the costs it would take for the town to do that. There would be all of that information would really go back to the state to help them as the trans is looking at developing a program to make it easier for towns to do this. There would be no obligation for Jericho to do anything with the information or pursue it with the state. It would just be I think it would be really great to have that information. Mm-hmm. So I'll be making that pitch to the select board on Thursday. So,
which parts of Route 15?
I focus specifically on Jericho Corners.
So from Joe's to the school,
It would be a mile. I don't exactly know where. I mean, I would work that out we would work that out with CCRPC.
But it wouldn't be through the whole town of Jericho.
Correct. They're just looking at a mile for this pilot study.
Okay.
So what's most interesting about Jericho is that a lot of the conversation about Route 15 and the problems of having Route 15 go right through us is sort of like a no-brainer that it's a problem through the village centers, but it's really the stretch between Raceway, right? Between the elementary school and the new traffic light. And that's what riles people up almost more than the village centers, so that's a rural setting, kind of just on the outskirts of the village center. So I don't know if they'd be willing to extend their 1 mile rule.
So I just came up with Jericho Corners.
Okay.
We could look at a different stretch, and actually, leading into the next one, the regional land use map and the land use review board's review of. Actually, I'm gonna move to the next one because I'm gonna refer back. So first, thank you, Planning Commission, for agreeing to submit the letter of support, and for Susan for sending the letter.
Chris for writing the letter. Sign it.
It meant it was really helpful for CCRPC, and the land use review board I went to the hearing on Monday for a couple hours. They were really impressed with the amount of outreach that CCRPC did in working with all of the municipalities as they developed the land use map. CCRPC made the point that the categories that we were working with was really designed for the rest of the state and not really Chittenden County. And so it was a real challenge in terms of trying to figure out how some of these apply to this area. So I think our letter that we sent in really reinforced the level of engagement they did for the municipalities, and the land use review board specifically called out the amount of work that CCRPC had done in working with the municipalities. And every time a question would come up, in all of the different towns, like, well, why is it this way? And like, it didn't make sense. And each case, CCRPC would say, well, we were working with the towns. This is what their town plan says. There was always a local justification for doing it. So we were just part of that story. So I think it was really helpful that we did that. I think we were the only town that submitted the letter. So I think that was great. They used Jericho as an example. CCRPC used Jericho as an example in presenting to the Land Use Review Board. I just can't say LURB. So the Land Use Review Board, in terms of how it designated village centers, they have examples for downtowns, and then they gave some examples for village centers. They used Jericho. The only question that the Land Use Review Board had, or comment they had, was the stretch of Route 15 between Jericho Corners and Riverside, and what a kind of a no man's land that was in terms of pedestrian facilities and bike facilities. And for our land use plan, it's that village. Much of it is a village district or the transition area. So maybe that is an area we want to look at. I don't know if that is what CCRPC has in mind in terms of what they're looking for, in terms of what they're trying to get out of the study. But anyway, that's my long story of getting back to the point of, yes, that stretch between the two villages is an issue that's come up.
And it's been studied a few times for a biped connection through CCRPC funding or staffing or whatever. And so there were two different studies that kind of came to two different conclusions, maybe even three, for goodness sake. And the first study came up with a solution for a sidewalk or multimodal path that then was not funded. They applied for a grant like 2 times and it was not funded because not enough residents would be serviced by this facility. It's sort of like it's catch-22 or, chicken and egg, because it is a 50-mile stretch. And one of our big issues that we've heard from the public over and over is that the speed limit changes multiple times. And so you're like 35 for a second, and then you're 40 for a minute, and then you're 50 for 3 minutes, and then
it's a school zone.
Right. It's crazy. And we've always been like, can't we just change it? Can't we just change it? Why won't V-Trans let us change it? At least could it just be 35 all the way through? Like, what truck is gonna benefit really from going to 50 for 5 seconds. It's just, whereas the village center, the problems are very known. It's like it's a windy turn, the turn is awkward, and it's noisy, and it feels potentially unsafe. But the solutions are already underway with like sidewalks and street lights and houses close to the road and traffic calming. Like, I don't know, it seems to me like a much harder problem in a way to look at this. But maybe they would say that's too unique of a condition, so it's not gonna help us. We'd rather look at a village center because that's a more common condition.
I feel like it's a more common condition, and it is tied more to the types of things that a town would typically take on, like a streetscape project.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I know it's 25 miles per hour, but I don't know how much people are going 25 miles per hour. And even then, even if they are going 25 miles per hour, you're right on the street. There's no on-street park. There's no separation between pedestrians, and there's a lot of potential there. And I think looking at that could queue up if we were looking at like a village master plan that could help inform some of that discussion. At least that was my thinking.
Yep. And we do have business there, the mill is there, a park is there.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my update.
Okay, other updates from other people. Anything? The wastewater task force is chugging along, right? We have a meeting tomorrow.
Yep.
Thinking about what kind of information should be available in time for town meeting on January 20th. The engineer has made progress on their preliminary engineering report, which we're going to be reviewing and discussing over the next couple of weeks. So that seems to be all on track.
And with that call from Department of Energy and Conservation's going to our meeting tomorrow night and talk about their programs. Should be interesting.
Okay, anything else? Other business. We have any new topics to introduce to the group. Wendy introduced the idea of looking at the work plan, and when can we get the commercial district?
I would like to sort of reintroduce this, not really necessarily our purview, but I really think there's a potentially great opportunity to work with Beta to provide housing.
Beta technology.
They're, they just had their IPO, they have job fairs, they're
They're
desperately trying to hire people, and there will be no place for those people to live. And the guy used to live in Jericho, went to MMU.
Do you know him?
No,
Does anybody
my
have
son
any
knows his
contacts?
son, they played lacrosse together, but I don't know, but I think it's a real opportunity. And I think, part of me is thinking chip program, all of David Villeneuve's great soils. I mean, could be a lot of great housing. And Beta, a lot of other big businesses are building housing. I mean,
Right.
UVM is building housing.
Right, Middlebury College. Yep.
So, I mean, we know there's no housing in Chittenden County,
Mhm.
and we know they want to hire.
So do we do a direct outreach? Do we go through the Greater Burlington Industrial Corp, which is the economic development entity for the county? Do we go through CCRPC?
Well,
Is
when
it
you
the
say
CDC, should they be the lead for us?
I feel like it could be more personal because
Yep.
he used to be in the community. He doesn't live here anymore, but he used to. And I think so I think it could be more direct and personal.
I think a lot of Wendy, certainly your kids and my kids would have been with the Beta guys
Yeah,
in school.
yeah,
And most of us probably know people who work at
yes,
Beta.
I do.
And I think a personal approach
Yeah,
would be the way to go. If it works from there, they want to bring in
Mhm.
the other folks, great, but personal connection is what drives it first. So,
and I also suspect that they will be hiring people that would be looking for workforce housing. It's not necessarily, you know, bougie executives that they're hiring.
Right, right. I have a couple of ideas of some people I could ask. And if anybody else has any ideas, you want to ask Pete.
And don't we have a economic development corporation emerging in our town?
JCDC,
Yeah, that's what Chris was wondering.
the Jericho Community Development Corporation, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, that would be the one to.
yeah, so aren't they mostly focused on the railroad property still,
Yes.
which doesn't seem to be going anywhere? But
Okay, anything else for new business, other business? Okay, December 16th, we're continuing. You're gonna come back to us, Chris, with some recommendations and some research on what we discussed tonight. Is there anything else for that meeting?
Yeah, I hope so. It's going to depend on how far I can get in conversations with other people to kind of work through what we've talked through and coming back with something
Mhm.
to respond to.
Mhm.
And this should say December 16th.
Right, but do we have any other items that you're anticipating that we're gonna have on our agenda at that meeting, or you don't know yet?
I don't have anything else.
Wendy and I will have a draft idea to share of what to put for the town meeting,
Great.
Okay,
right? Because we're gonna meet next week. Next week? Yeah, okay.
for
Yeah.
our table.
Next week, right? So that we'll have some ideas for that, and Chris, it might be that we need a little help in the implementation.
Yes. Yep. That worked. What we did last time was.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay, Sabina, do you need to add in or chime in on anything?
I don't have any updates. Nope.
Okay. All right, are we ready to adjourn
My gosh, it's only
early?
40.
Look at us.
Who would like to make the motion?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Heidi made a motion to adjourn. Who's the second?
I'll second.
Eric, thank you.
Oh.
Eric got you there first.
All
All right. All those in favor of adjourn, please say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.